Another great article by Scott C. Waring. He writes, "Oh my god guys, Tyler over at Secure Team 10 made this awesome video, and as I was watching he stated something that blew me away. Tyler said that this area that has gone unmapped for 8 years is at Nellis Air Force Base at the end of old firing range. Pow! That set me off. You see, Nellis AFB is famous for having an alien base of tall whites located behind the old firing range. I believe that a tall white ship saw the moves of a F-16 as threatening and shot it down. For instance, the F-16 could have locked its laser tracking missile system on the UFO, that could be seen as threatening. Tall whites are said to be hyper-aggressive. Tall whites see themselves as superior to humans and have killed U.S. Air Force soldiers before for such things as pushing a child tall white away from your gun, touching a child tall white at all, or defying any demand they make. Yet, not the superior species many hoped for, but the U.S. military seems to think there is a great benefit in having them there, probably for military trade of tech and information. Do you want to learn more about the tall whites at Nellis? Then watch this interview of a man who was a non-military go-between for the tall whites and the U.S. Air Force. I will put the video below. I noticed this news posted on the UFOsightingsdaily.com run by Scott C. Waring. He writes, "Now the U.S. Air Force is reporting that an F-16 crashed while doing training at Nellis AFB, however I think it's all a cover-up. You see, Nellis AFB is famous for having an alien base of tall whites located behind the old firing range. I believe that a tall white ship saw the moves of a F-16 as threatening and shot it down. For instance, the F-16 could have locked its laser tracking missile system on the UFO, that could be seen as threatening. Tall whites are said to be hyper-aggressive. Tall whites see themselves as superior to humans and have killed U.S. Air Force soldiers before for such things as pushing a child tall white away from your gun, touching a child tall white at all, or defying any demand they make. Yet, not the superior species many hoped for, but the U.S. military seems to think there is a great benefit in having them there, probably for military trade." For centuries, people have argued over the possibility of existence of aliens. There have been incidents reported by humans claiming seeing extraterrestrial beings on Earth. Now an author, also a former U.S. Air Force serviceman, is claiming that he has seen human-like aliens frequenting Las Vegas casinos. Mirror UK is reporting that the American author claims that aliens wearing human outfits frequently hit the bars of the Vegas Strip. The report notes that Charles Hall is currently on a speaking tour of Norway where he revealed the account of his encounter with the aliens. It is reported that the author of book series Millennial Hospitality claims that the U.S. military have managed to establish contact with species of aliens called tall whites. He claims that the defense forces have also worked alongside these extraterrestrial beings since the 50s. He reported that the U.S. military merchandised technologies with these aliens. However, the big revelation to the general public was avoided because authorities believed that aliens were not emotionally ready for such an interaction. Elaborating further, he said these creatures disguised in human clothing, wore sunglasses to visit the casinos and unwind. They reportedly visited places like Stardust in Las Vegas. He also notes that casinos frequented by them were usually surrounded by CIA handlers. In 1964, when I was a weather observer at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, I witnessed interactions between the military and a group of mysterious tall, white, human-like extraterrestrials, said Hall as quoted by Metro. Hall is known for his 4-part book series Millennial Hospitality that provides the accounts of authors' encounters and interactions with aliens. The report notes that these accounts were later revealed to be true. Also, author's brief bio on Amazon.com states that Hall's real-life experiences during his service as a weather observer in Nevada has served as the background material of his book that was first published in 2002. Hall served as a military man in United States as well as Vietnam. He claims that many of his colleagues at the former military base, close to Las Vegas, had had an encounter with tall whites. This base is now not in use. He describes the encounter with these aliens as a shocking event because one is not certain whether they are looking at ghost or an angel or it's simply a dream. This is not the first time such accounts about aliens' presence on the Earth have been reported. As noted in the report, Nigel Watson, the author of UFO Investigations Manual, state that these accounts of aliens' infiltration in top levels of society have emerged time and again. Charles Hall's Millennial Hospitality book series, describing his encounters with a race of human-like extraterrestrials, the Tall Whites, TW, during a 2-year duty assignment at Nellis Air Force Base from 1965 to 1967, is a story with tremendous visual impact. Situated on Nevada's vast Desert National Wildlife Range, a scenic wilderness containing almost no artificial structures, the Nellis Ranges consist of almost nothing but breathtaking scenery. This is the backdrop against which Hall's story plays out. Every event he describes can be said to consist of the same basic elements: the landscape, the weather, the people, humans and humanoids, the craft, sometimes the weather shacks, the occasional glimpse of a hangar door and, believe it or not, the TW children's playgrounds. The story cries out for visuals of these elements. Yet it was not possible for Hall to provide us with anything other than his memories. Visuals would have had value beyond the aesthetic, they also would have demonstrated the feasibility of some of the things Hall describes. For example, he writes that he was able to view the Tall Whites' main hangar entrance high in the mountains 30 miles north of his Range 3 theodolite position on the desert floor. A photograph of that unlikely view would have helped to support the story. 20 years after his discharge from the Air Force, Hall began writing down his experiences, and after another 20 years, published them, at first presenting his books as works of fiction. Had he never reversed himself and begun claiming them to be true stories, albeit slightly modified to protect the identities of some of the characters, there would have been no point in going back and trying to reconstruct the events as they took place on the ground. When he was writing his stories, he did not know that it might be possible to reconstruct how they fitted into the landscape and in that way test the possibility of what he claimed to have viewed. He did not know that high-resolution elevation data and satellite imagery of the Nellis Ranges would ever be made available to the public, or that software capable of rendering photorealistic images from the raw data would be widely available. And yet, these things have come to pass, and this makes it possible to create realistic illustrations and even a video animation of at least one element of his story, the landscape in which it takes place. I first began experimenting with the geological data, the satellite images, and landscape rendering software in late 2004, hoping to have a first look at geometric feasibility and to add interest to Hall's narrative. The results were successful on both counts. In each instance, the views described by Hall turned out to be confirmed by the graphic renderings. And the images were pleasing and even dramatic to look at. One unexpected benefit from this work has been the opportunity it has given Charles Hall to relive his old experiences through viewing these illustrations. Here is what he wrote in an email after having been shown the report as a work in progress. "They are so impressive, I can hardly describe them. The memories they bring back to me I am not able to describe in this short email. Indeed, working with these images has given me the feeling that I know the terrain well, and they can bring that closeness to you also. But what of the other elements that we would like to have? weather, people, spacecrafts, and structures. Here we are dependent on what Charles Hall remembers and is willing to help us recreate in terms of drawings and verbal descriptions. He has supplied 2 sketches of spacecraft shapes, and from this a graphic model has been developed. This is included in the report. Weather and lighting conditions are amply described in his books where relevant, and it has been possible to recreate that aspect in the landscape renderings. Hall also describes the weather shacks in some detail, and they do play a role in his experiences. I have elected not to take on the task of rendering architecture in the present report, however, as this would require significant additional effort, and it remains to be seen if there will any interest in it. As to the rest, we can hope that this report itself will stimulate Hall's memories to the extent that he will be able to contribute more information that can be included in future updates. A stunning Federal Security Services, FSB, report on the nearly 2 million highly classified top-secret documents obtained from the United States Department of Defense, run National Security Agency Central Security Service, NSA-CSS, by the American expatriate Edward Snowden states that this information is providing incontrovertible proof that an alien extraterrestrial intelligence agenda is driving U.S. domestic and international policy, and has been doing so since at least 1945. In Snowden's own words, the report continues, he outlined the reason for his highly secretive group obtaining and releasing these documents by warning that there were actually 2 governments in the US, the one that was elected, and the other, secret regime, governing in the dark. As to who is running this secret regime Snowden and his cohorts were warning about, FSB experts in the report say, was confirmed this past weekend by former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer, who was given access to all of Snowden's documents by Russian intelligence services and stated they were, indeed, accurate. Even though Defense Minister Hellyer's exact statements to the FSB in regards to Snowden's documents remain classified, shortly after his extensive electronic interview by the FSB he was allowed to appear on Russia Today's program Sofisio this past fortnight, where he shockingly admitted that aliens have been visiting our planet for thousands of years and described several types of these extraterrestrials, including tall whites who are working with the U.S. Air Force in Nevada. Of the many explosive revelations in the FSB report, the one most concerning to Russian authorities are the Snowden's documents confirming that the tall whites are the same extraterrestrial alien race behind the stunning rise of Nazi Germany during the 1930s. Snowden's documents further confirm, the report says, the tall whites, Nordic, meetings in 1954 with U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower where the secret regime currently ruling over America was established, reports What does it mean? On the subject of alleged alien abductions, Dr. David Jacobs Ph.D. a recently retired associate professor of history at Temple University and specialized in the research of alien abductions, states the abduction phenomenon is not a benevolent, other-dimensional spiritual experience like so many people report. Rather, Jacobs' research through hypnotic regression with alleged alien abductees suggests that alien-human hybrids are engaged in a clandestine program of the secret regime of infiltration into human society worldwide. These human hybrids are training to live here, Jacobs asserts during an exclusive interview with EMN, and although the abductees are not allowed to remember what happened to them, these human hybrids are being trained by the abductees. With the tall white agenda being implemented by the secret regime ruling the United States calls for the creation of a global electronic surveillance system meant to hide all true information about their presence here on Earth and the extensive infiltration of human hybrids into human society worldwide, they enter the final phase of their plan for total assimilation and world rule.